Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda is your one-stop Honda shop. Link, thanks for the time. It is much appreciated. Of course, Lincoln can be heard on the Raiders radio broadcast. He's the analyst for the Las Vegas Raiders. Link, let me ask you about the quarterback situation first. Your thoughts on Jimmy G being the chosen one at QB1?
Well, it's something that's logical and made sense. You have a quarterback who's familiar with your system. He's played for McDaniels before in New England. And look, for what it's worth, you look at his win-loss and touchdown completion records, it's a natural choice. You didn't have to pay that as high a price as you would, say, Aaron Rodgers. Really, there weren't a whole lot of free agent options out there. I still expect the Raiders to make a move at quarterback in this year's draft. But right now, you got a temporary fix with Jimmy G.
Is it an upgrade over Derek Carr?
I would say more consistent, yes. A more consistent with quarterback. Because, look, okay, I'm not going to knock Derek Carr, so I'm not going to try to make it seem like that. But I will say this. Derek can make every throw on the football field. The problem became his decision-making. And the thing for Jimmy G can make every throw on the football field. The problem was his health. He couldn't finish the season. So, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. So when you say, is it an upgrade, Derek had his worst year professionally last year for the Raiders, just threw far more interceptions than touchdowns, and you had to make a move on him. The experiment had failed, so you had to move on him. But, for what it's worth, Jimmy G is an accurate enough quarterback, a good enough quarterback with completion percentage. I think they can win some football games with them and keep them competitive in this division.
Lincoln Kennedy is with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Lincoln, would you be surprised if they picked a quarterback at 7?
That high, yes. I would be surprised because I think they have another option. The only problem that I've ever had when you take a quarterback in the top 10 is that you feel the pressure, whether it be from the fans or just the overall, general feeling that you have to start him, a top 10 quarterback. You don't pick a quarterback in the top 10 and have him sit and watch.
Because you did say earlier you think they would plan for the future at quarterback and make a move in the draft. So you're thinking second, third round, maybe they find their guy?
They've got 12 draft choices to deal with. So, there's some options there, but they've got a lot of needs they need to address. And now that you've got Jimmy G, quarterback is not the most pressing one. However, you have to think that they're going to make a move because Jimmy G is probably going to give you 2-3 years at the max.
Is Lincoln still there? We just lose him?
No, you got me?
There he is. Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know where we left off. I was just saying that, you probably got maybe 2-3 years tops with Jimmy G, so you're going to have to address it one way or the other.
All right, Lincoln Kennedy is with us. He's on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Did you like the idea of dealing Waller and signing Jacoby Myers, or do you see that as a step backwards for the offense, Lincoln?
Well, look, Darren Waller is a special talent, but I understood because I could read the tea leaves last year that he wasn't really gelling with his coaching staff and someone knocking heads. So something has to give. You can't have a player be a disruption or a distraction in the locker room, so they had to move him. Unfortunately, he's one of those unique talents that you really don't want to get away from. But if you can't play him, you got to do something with him.
Lincoln, I wanted to get away from the Raiders quick if we could, and just how do you explain the lack of interest in a player as dynamic as Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position?
I think what we've seen over the past couple of years is, from Patrick Mahomes' contract to Deshaun Watson's contract, I don't think teams really want to give that much guaranteed money away to a quarterback. And it's wrong, but you see them trying to get further and further away from it. Look, Patrick Mahomes signed a contract extension, wasn't more or less a new contract, but Deshaun Watson's contract in Cleveland really set a lot of people off guard because that first year he couldn't play. So it's sad, but it's also got to remember it's business. And then one of the things that businesses, especially NFLs, they want to control their overhead. They're always going to try to do control their overhead. And most teams do not want to negotiate a contract or negotiate a deal from somebody to come back and just say, okay, we'll give you those terms if you come to us. So they're trying to play the wait and see game. But, they're ruining feelings. They're hurting feelings. It's one of those things where guys can't take it personal. It's business.
Lincoln Kennedy with us. Just a few more for you, Lincoln. Again, thanks for joining us in the time as always. With all of that said, if you were a team that was quarterback needy, would you be willing to give up the picks and the money that it would take to bring Lamar Jackson in?
If I could build an offense around him because he's a special talent, I would love it. I think he's that dynamic of a player. But you have to see what Baltimore did a few years back when they went to Louisville. They picked up the playbook he had in Louisville. They studied it. They created, put a little bit of in there in their offense for him. You've got to have that type of offense because he's that special a player.
Want to ask you, before we let you go, Lincoln, about the 49ers quarterback situation. Yeah. They say Brock Purdy is their guy. They get Sam Darnold as sort of the insurance policy with Trey Lance still there and them trying to figure out exactly what they have in that kid. How my confusion is you have such a good team to leave the quarterback position up in the air the way that it's been now for 2+ years. Doesn't see it's not the way that a lot of front offices would go. What do you think of the choices that the 49ers have made at the quarterback position?
I think they've kind of been forced into that. You know, look, they decided to make their bed when they went up in the draft and drafted Trey Lance. That was their guy of the future. But he's been unable to stay on the football field, so you kind of had to make do with what you could. And then you had the Jimmy G situation where he won football games for you, but you weren't going to be able to keep him on your roster because he was too expensive. Now you found a little bit of a charm in Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy has his limitations. They might be exploited if he becomes a starter. More defensive coordinators get their eye on him, but it's still a good football team. With that defense, they can win football games, especially in that division. You got, as you mentioned, Sam Darnold. This is like a little emergency go-to if you need to. But you know, Sam Darnold is still trying to find his place since he was originally drafted by the Jets. So it's a lot of question marks. But we've seen quarterbacks in this system thrive and excel and make do and win football games. I still think they can make it happen with 3 they have on the roster.
My last one for you, Lincoln. I got to ask about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. He goes there as expected. How good are they?
Well, I think they're a playoff-bound team, especially in that division. And with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, they've got all the tools necessary. They've been working their way through the draft with picks and stuff like that. They've got a feisty defense, and they're on the rise. But you know how these New York teams often look good on paper, but when they get out there, they muddle up. So we'll have to see how the season goes.
No doubt. Thanks, Lincoln. We appreciate the time, man. Let's do it again soon. You were great as always.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you. There goes Lincoln Kennedy. Of course, he's the Raiders radio analyst on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Yeah, I mean, look,